All right, the Pentagon is distancing itself right now from a memo by a U.S. Air Force general which warns about potential war with China within the next 2 years. In fact, it predicts as much. According to a statement from the Pentagon press secretary, the focus of the U.S., quote, remains on working alongside allies and partners to preserve a peaceful, free, and open Indo-Pacific. Let's now bring in General H.R. McMaster to give us his analysis on what's happening here. He's a CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor and the author of Battlegrounds, The Fight to Defend the Free World. He's also served as former President Trump's national security advisor. H.R. McMaster, welcome back to CBS News. Great to have you here. What do you make of the prediction and the Pentagon's response, this war with China within the next 2 years?
Well, good morning, Errol. Good morning, Emory. Great to be with you. Hey, this is exactly what General Minihan should be doing. He's the head of Air Mobility Command. And it's his job to be ready to fight tomorrow, right? He doesn't get to pick whether we go to war or not, but he has to tell his command to get ready. What he said is, hey, I've got a gut feeling that we're in a period of increasing danger. And I think he's right about that. You know, he's talked about the Taiwanese election in 2024. If the Chinese Communist Party doesn't see the outcome they want in Taiwan, then I think the chances go up. If China continues to encounter the internal difficulties they've had, economically, financially, the real estate sector, does that make an attack on Taiwan more likely? I think maybe it does, in terms of Xi's desire to maybe stoke nationalism and get people's minds off of the internal problems. But most importantly, Errol, I say, hey, Xi Jinping has said he's going to do it, and many of his speeches, he seems to be preparing the Chinese people for war. And of course, it's our military's job to be ready. And, I think there's a tendency in the Pentagon these days and in Washington to think that we can have this nifty form of deterrence. Well, you know what? Hard power matters. I mean, we learned that in Russia, right? We threatened all the sanctions. We had this, big diplomatic campaign going to prevent the war in Ukraine, and it didn't work. So our Defense Department has to be ready. They have to make their ability to fight and win the top priority, because that's what gets you deterrence, is convincing the People's Liberation Army, in this case, that they can't accomplish their objectives on Taiwan through the use of force.
So then what could a war with China look like?
Well, Emory, we've already seen, sort of below the threshold of what might elicit a military response, aggression by China. So they're trying everything. They're trying economic coercion, try to build economic and financial dependencies in Taiwan, a sustained campaign of information warfare against Taiwan. And you've seen the threats of direct military action with multiple overflights and violations of Taiwanese waters. And then, of course, remember, after Speaker Pelosi's visit, really kind of that soft blockade they almost put in place with those massive military exercises. So I think what you could see in a scenario that could lead to conflict are more of those escalating measures to coerce Taiwan after maybe the 2024 election. And then, of course, China's become much more aggressive other places, too. I mean, we have to remember, they're trying to affect the largest land grab, so to speak, in history in the South China Sea. They're trying to own the ocean, or a portion of the ocean, through which 1/3 of the world's surface trade flows. They've been bludgeoning Indian soldiers to death on the Himalayan frontier. They've been threatening South Korea and Japan as well. So I think General Minihan was right. And I wish more people in the Pentagon would make, hey, be ready to fight and win the #1 priority. We hear a lot about other priorities, but hey, I think we have to remember what the military is for.
Yeah, the South China Sea dispute itself has always been a potential flashpoint for conflict, and not to mention the allegations of how the Chinese are treating millions of Uyghur people. I mean, when you talk about just human rights. So, pick your issue. But China does own a massive slice of U.S. debt. I mean, the two nations are financially intertwined. What would be the motivation? I mean, I guess that's the difficulty of diplomacy. It only goes so far. You want to avoid war. But doesn't that complicate any potential conflict between the two nations, which could effectively take each other down?
For Xi Jinping, I don't think it does, Errol. I mean, of course, it doesn't make sense from our perspective, right? We look at it and we think, okay, how could this be in Xi Jinping's interest to have a war, right? I mean, he's economically dependent on us. He's trying to meet these really high growth targets, and he's not making those growth targets. But if you look at the series of decisions he's made, How about the zero COVID policy? That was a foot shot. How about cracking down on his tech sector and the negative economic implications that has had? So I think that, hey, the time has come to recognize this is a party driven by ideology and driven by emotion, especially the fear of losing the party's exclusive grip on power. And associated with that is this aspiration, this drive to restore China to greatness. This is the vision for national rejuvenation. And of course, Taiwan fits squarely into that drive. And that's why it's such a dangerous flashpoint. I think, hey, from General Minihan's memo as well, it was really clear that he understands that deterrence is a simple equation, right? It's capability times will. The enemy's assessment of your capability times your will. And he mentioned not only the Taiwanese election in 24, but the U.S. election and the degree to which polarization in the United States, a perception of democracies being weak, might play into Putin's calculus. But I'll tell you, Errol, I think Xi Jinping would be wrong to do that. I mean, our democracies, we look kind of messy. We are ugly. Those authoritarian regimes look strong from the outside, but they're actually quite brittle, and our democracies are much more resilient than certainly these authoritarian regimes give us credit for.
Well, Xi Jinping is obviously playing a long game. He's won an unprecedented third term.
That's right.
I mean, I'm not going to predict, but I don't know if the third will be the last for him. It certainly looks like he's setting himself up to be there for a long time. But, General, Taiwan is an island. We've provided a tremendous amount of military aid to Ukraine since the war began. You can't do that in Taiwan. You can't provide military support afterwards, after there's a blockade. You won't be able to get it in. Are we in any position at this point to participate in any sort of military action if Taiwan becomes the flashpoint?
Yeah, yes, we are, Emory. We have a whole range of capabilities. So typically you'll hear people really pay a lot of attention, as they should, to what's called Chinese anti-access area denial capabilities. This is tiered and layered air defense. It's their long-range missile systems. It's their drone capabilities. But we have a range of capabilities ourselves. The problem is China has a positional advantage. China is challenging us at the far reaches of American power. And this is why it's so important, like a command like General Minihan, the general who warned about this, Air Mobility Command, to be ready to project power there. But I'll tell you, it's taking over Taiwan, if that's what China wants to do, that wouldn't be easy. I mean, the island is the size of Maryland. It's about 150 miles they have to cross. Really tough to sustain an offensive with an amphibious operation like that. The seas are stormy. There are about 2 or 3 really good landing areas on the west coast of Taiwan. So, I hope the People's Liberation Army doesn't underestimate it. Well, maybe they are. Like Russia underestimated the difficulty of trying to subsume all of Ukraine with their brutal invasion on February 24th of last year.
General H.R. McMaster, it's always great talking to you. Thank you, sir.
And Maria, I've got one last thing.
Oh, there you go.
Go Eagles. I was there. Go Eagles.
I love it. I was scouring your background, and I was like, oh, maybe he's just a Phillies fan, not an Eagles fan. But there you go. Of course, one more reason to like you. Thank you, General.
Thank you, H.O.